Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. My name's Howard Inns and I'm going to act as your host this afternoon. The charging regime for non-geographic numbers is going to change. Non-geographic numbers are numbers that begin with 08, 03, 09 and the 118 range that we've become familiar with for direct inquiry. These changes are being introduced by Ofcom, and UK Calling is the name that Ofcom have given to the campaign, which is aimed at the caller to understand what's changing and why it's happening. Now, this is happening not just to give the presenters a Strictly Come Dancing and X Factor something different to say when they plead for our votes, but instead it's happening to make things fairer for callers. But in making things fairer for callers, it will have an effect on organisations that offer those numbers to their customers. So what we're going to do during this 30-minute webinar, we're going to take you through things step by step. So first of all, we're going to summarise what the changes are. Then we're going to explore the implications of those changes. And in doing that, we're going to set out what you need to do. And then we're going to consider whether this change is just an annoying problem because it means that you've got to change all of your marketing, literature and advertising, or whether it's an opportunity for you to reconsider the way that you contact your customers and the way that you manage your contact with those customers, and to see whether it's an opportunity to provide additional contact mechanisms that give your customers a better. So to kick off, what better way to start than by hearing direct from Ofcom about their reasoning and the shape of the changes that the changes will take. Hugh Saunders from Ofcom is going to introduce himself. He's kindly agreed to record a video for us to explain exactly what's happening. The video is going to play now.
I'm Hugh Saunders. I'm the Director of Network Infrastructure in the Technology team at Ofcom. More importantly in this context, I'm the Project Director for the implementation of our proposed changes to the non-geographic calls regime. Essentially, they are twofold. One is that 0800 and other free-to-caller services will be free to callers from all networks, not just some, as they are at the moment. And secondly, all the other non-geographic call ranges will have an unbundled tariff applied to them in future, with a service charge which will be, again, common across all networks, and an access charge which will be specific to the given network a consumer is calling from. The overall regulatory regime for non-geographic calls has been the subject of an awful lot of change over quite a prolonged period. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and some of the background of it does actually go back to the early 90s. The outcome of that was that there were significant inconsistencies in that regulatory regime, and as a result of those, there was an awful lot of consumer confusion, in particular over the cost of calls. To take an example, 0800 calls, which are supposedly free to callers, were from fixed networks, but generally from mobile networks were actually as much as 25 pence a minute. Or conversely, 0845 services, which are supposed to be low-cost services and are indeed from landlines, typically in the range 3 to 7 pence per minute, can cost over 40 pence per minute from mobile networks. We believe that results in two sets of consumer harms or detriments. One is that there is a considerable risk of bill shock. In other words, consumers incur a significant charge which they weren't anticipating for particular calls that they make. Or secondly, because of the potential risk of that, they are deterred from making calls to such services because they're unsure about how much they will actually be charged. We think that's a bad outcome for consumers, and hence we've taken advantage of changes to the regulatory regime implemented through European changes and amendments to the so-called European framework for telecoms, and are reforming it so that the confusion is reduced and consumers have more confidence and will make better use of these services in future, which we think is good for businesses as well.
Thank you, Hugh. Now, I'm joined live today by a number of my colleagues. We're in a room in London, and the first person that I want to introduce to you is Lisa Green. Now, Lisa has a challenging role in our organisation as our numbering, interconnect and regulatory manager, and she's not only deeply involved in the changes that we need to make to accommodate these changes, advising our customers, but she's also heavily involved in the implementation for Kcom because she chairs the industry working groups for these changes. So, Lisa, we've heard from Hugh Saunders from Ofcom, so we know what the changes are. And we've worked with many organisations that use non-geographic numbers. From where you sit, what do you think the biggest impact is going to be?
The changes aim to increase pricing transparency and consumer confidence. If we achieve that, then I'd like to think that in line, calls to non-geographic numbers will increase. It's been a long time in the making, but at last, free phone will truly be free to caller, which is a great message to secure calls. However, this comes at a cost, as the mobile networks will need to be compensated for that. The overall volume of calls made from mobiles to free phone numbers is relatively low at the moment, and we expect this to change. It follows that the cost of operating free phone services will increase. Another significant impact to all users of the unbundled non-geographic numbers, so that's those that start with 084, 087, 09 and 118, is that they will assume obligations to publish the service charge for their numbers wherever their numbers are published. There are costs associated with this to ensuring compliance and to updating all material where your numbers are published. The new pricing information publication requirements will be regulated by the Advertising Standards Authorities for the 084 number range, which is new, and for all other numbers, PhonePay Plus, the premium rate regulator, will continue to regulate promotional material. The big impact for telecommunication companies like ourselves is that we have to make significant changes to our billing systems, and the underlying wholesale pricing regime that underpins the supply of non-geographic numbers to customers is changing.
Okay, so you touched on a topic there that customers might not realise, that there's actually quite a profound effect on the transactions between telecommunications companies, which have this impact on tariffs. So, what's the timetable going to be as we move towards these changes for things like changes in tariffs?
Well, the service charge price points that number ranges will operate at have to be finalised by telecommunications companies like ourselves, and these should be communicated to the users of non-geographic numbers before the end of this year. At the same time, users will be advised about their obligations to publish price information and the likely tariff impacts for them. Depending on the service charge decisions made for number ranges, some tariffs could suffer a detrimental impact. However, the overarching aim for many telecommunications companies is to ensure minimal disruption to existing tariffs. That said, I've already highlighted that the cost of operating free phone services will increase. In advance of go-live, confirmed tariff changes for users of non-geographic numbers will be made. And at the very minimum, this has to be in line with contract notice periods.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So what should organisations that are using non-geographic numbers be doing now?
Well, users of free phone numbers need to prepare for cost increases and also gear up to promote the positive message that calls to such numbers will be free to all callers. For the unbundled tariff numbers, customers need to make preparations for publicising their service charge pricing information. So that means reviewing all the areas where their numbers are published, such as on websites, letter templates, vehicles, etc., and scheduling in the changes needed from the 1st of July 2015. It's worth noting that the UK Calling regime does not require anyone to change their non-geographic numbers that they use, but it's an ideal opportunity now to review your contact numbering strategy.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. So what we're going to do is to move through step by step. So we've gone through the step of understanding what the changes are likely to be, the timescales and the implications. What we want to consider now is preparing for those changes by looking at the non-geographic numbers that are in use at the moment and getting things a little bit more under control. So we want to do that with my colleague Alan Powger, who's been involved in helping organisations understand how to use non-geographic numbers for some time. And I want to start off, Alan, by asking you what the simple things that customers can consider to start getting their numbers under control? I mean, you've been to see lots of organisations and have got some good experiences of what you've found when you've gone to review their number ranges. What sort of things would you recommend as that first step?
Okay, I think you're right, Howard, because most users of non-geographic numbers will find that over a period of time, the number of number ranges in use, the quantity of these numbers that are actually published changes, and they can very, very easily get into a state of disrepair when numbers are forgotten about or routing isn't used as frequently as it should be. So we would absolutely advocate using these regulatory changes as a driver to start an audit of the use of your non-geographic numbers within the business. And some of the simple things you can do as part of that audit is just looking to make sure that the type of numbers that are published and the cost per call for those numbers is still absolutely relative to the business area that they're targeted at. Making sure that the calls are actually being routed to the right destination. So as we mentioned a moment ago, if these things have been in service for quite some time, it's very, very easy for routes to be, or calls to be routed to destinations which may not be properly utilised. And to do this, what you really need to do is get hold of as much of the management information from your existing supplier, your non-geographic number supplier, so you can understand the frequency and volume of calls to each of these numbers and whether there is a case for consolidation in certain areas. You may also consider the introduction of an 03 number to run alongside your some of your 0800 services. So as more and more mobile users start to call 0800, as we've heard from Lisa, the cost of those of operating those services will increase. So introducing an 03 number now gives a level of established practice, if you like, for mobile users to call an 03 number as an alternative to 0800, and in many cases their calls to 03 could actually be free because they're billed the same as an 01 and 02 number range.
Okay, we touched there on call routing. So what sort of role does call routing have in keeping control of what's happening? This is the situation where you press 1 for service A and press 2 for service B. Okay, that's also a good question, because the messages that are delivered after somebody dials a number need to be also checked to make sure that they're providing the right information and that the options presented to callers give you the best match, if you like, between a single number that might be used for a range of services, or having a whole load of numbers out there, each relating to a different service. So it's definitely worthwhile looking at the whole caller journey, the whole customer experience, and make sure it's in keeping with what you're trying to do as a business. There are also other technologies that can be implemented to reduce the number of options that callers have to actually listen to and select from a menu. Things such as speech recognition alongside normal push button services, and also introducing smartphone applications that can effectively flatten the IVR structures by allowing customers to kind of pre-select the reason they want to call and have the application actually dial the number for them. This will overall provide a much better customer experience. The other thing I think needs to be looked at is the business continuity area. So most 0800 or 08 type services will have options that your business has planned for dealing with various business continuity situations. What we find in practice is that some of these business continuity delivery numbers aren't tested often enough, and it can often be the case where a number that doesn't receive calls frequently may have then been audited from the inside looking outwards to say this call doesn't take any numbers, so I don't know who used it, maybe we'll take it out of service, and then you suddenly find your disaster recovery plans aren't actually routing anywhere. So it's always worth checking every single destination number for both business as usual and business continuity. Now, technology advances quickly, and the tools that are now available to consider different approaches to managing customer interactions have become extremely sophisticated. And the next step we're going to take is to consider doing things differently. And firstly, we're going to consider doing things differently by using telephony services, by using the non-geographic numbers that we've been speaking about. We're going to use a customer example for this. The NHS Business Services Authority is an organisation that's based in Newcastle who provides some extremely important services for you and I, which in effect oil the wheels of the NHS. One of those services is the issue of the European health insurance cards, which are essential if we need healthcare whilst we're in another country in Europe. Now, I spoke yesterday to David Roberts, who's the Contact Centre Services Manager for the NHS BSA, about the way in which they're using non-geographic numbers to issue European health cards. So this is what David said. So what we're considering is, based on a telephone call to 0300 330 1350, what we're doing is automating the process of issuing an EHIC card, and that we're doing that without involving a call centre agent. So David, can you tell us more about why that decision was made to put that automation in place?
Yeah, the NHS BSA took on the administration of the European Health Insurance Card, which was previously the E111 card, in 2009, or 2008, sorry. And in 2009, it was clear that the volumes involved, because of the seasonality for obvious reasons, and just the general fact that it was a new service, were really, really high. And it was a fairly low complex, high volume call stream, which immediately ticks the boxes for potential to be automated. So the main reason was purely the volume of traffic during those initial early years of 2009 to 2011, and even in the sort of the BAU years I would describe as we're currently in, the seasonality across the year just makes automation an obvious option for us, to avoid the huge peaks and troughs we would have if an agent was dealing with those calls. And again, the way we've set the model up with using Kcom is that the cost of a successful automation call far outweighs the cost of an agent. So for obvious reasons, excluding the seasonality and the peaks and troughs, the pure cost benefit we get from it is clear.
Okay, that's interesting. So what's the experience like? So how does it actually work from a customer's perspective if they call that number and go through the automated process?
Yeah, we deliberately made the decision to everybody who is applying, ringing the 0300 number and is applying for an application for an EHIC card is put down the automation route. There's no choice in that, and that is because there's no reason why an agent can do any more in terms of an application than the automation system can do. So it makes perfect sense for us to almost force people down that route, and the customer experience is exactly the same as it would be for an agent. When we originally set the call stream up in 2009, it was purely based on natural speech recognition technology. Okay. And over the years, one of the things we've learned and one of the things we've evolved is that now it's a mixture of touch tone and natural speech, and essentially we feel that works a lot better. I think initially we did sort of go down the natural speech technology because it was the latest technology. It was the sort of the current trend. It was really impressive, and that still works very, very well for us. But we have sort of tweaked that to sort of go back a little bit in terms of touch tone is better for certain aspects of it.
Okay, so it's a mixture of the two that delivers the automation, those changes were made to make it an easier service to use for the customers, I guess.
It was, yeah. It was purely based on customer experience and simple sort of things like listening to customer feedback, and also just getting some of our agents actually in a room and sort of playing the voice automation script, if you like, and as if they're going to do a live call themselves, and just feedback from agents was quite clear around the natural voice is great in lots of areas, but actually some of it we just want to press a couple of buttons and get to the certain menu as quick as we possibly can, and the natural speech was a little bit longer in that respect. So just from listening to our customers, just a bit of common sense, just a bit of listening and how we feel as customers ourselves, because we all use the service ourselves. It was a natural evolution really of just what fits best for each of our customers.
Okay, brilliant. That sounds good. So So what's the impact been? How many cards have been issued, and what's the impact been for you as an organisation in terms of saving money, etc.?
Well, in terms of by the end of this financial year, we expect to be around about 1.8 million calls will have been automated since the back end of 2009. We went live back end of 2009-2010 financial year. And in terms of the peak years, 2010 and 2011 were the two busiest years we've had because it was a new service and the way that the cards were issued. And in 2011, we automated 500,000 e-hit cards. And in the peak month of that year, it was 80,000. In the last 2 years, I would describe it as sort of, as I said before, business as usual levels. And even those levels are about 250,000 every year. And the peak summer months range between about 27,000 and 30,000 applications. So putting that all together, currently, if we didn't have voice automation, we'd need about an extra 20 to 25 staff during sort of June to September. And back in 2010 and 2011, those would have been double. And with our estates footprint, the challenges that we have in the public sector around, it's very difficult to get a new estate these days for obvious reasons and for common sense reasons. We can't just go out there and procure another floor and kit it all out. So without that, we would have exceeded our estate's footprint and incurred significant costs in terms of extra accommodation. And in terms of the cost alone that we've saved of just automating, it'll be around about £200,000 to £250,000 a year we're saving at the moment. And as I say, in 2010, 2011, that was closer to £300,000, £400,000 just on the 41 pence it is to automate a call compared to an agent cost to getting sort of utility costs, just purely the agent cost.
Okay, that's a significant saving. So you've improved the customer experience and you save money as well.
Yeah, I think in terms of improving the customer experience, I think what's best to describe it is we've maintained the customer experience.
Okay.
And I think the customer satisfaction surveys we've done, we've recently just done one 2 months ago, and the contact centre agent rating out of 10 overall for the inquiry aspect of eHIC was 9.2 out of 10, and the voice automation aspect was 8.2 out of 10. And we all know from lots of surveys, people, if they could choose, they would choose to speak to an agent. But the fact that we've got both ratings as really high green ratings for us means that the customer experience through automation is still very, very good, and the cost savings alone more than justify that. Certainly from a BSA perspective, if we were saving all of that money but the customer experience has been rated poorly, we would be looking at that again. But the fact that our customers rate the experience is very good and we're saving a lot of money, it sort of ticks both boxes really well.
Okay, that's brilliant. David, we really appreciate you talking to us. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, we're moving on to the last session in the last step in the process. We're considering here looking again at the way that that customers make contact with us and the way that telephony plays a part in that. And we looked at specifically with the NHS BSA about a telephony-based service. The other influence here is digital transformation, moving more to the online channel, if you like. And we hear an awful lot about digital transformation. It's a phenomenon that's important to our business here at Kcom. And I'm joined by Brian Condren, whose experience in Kcom is about innovation. And today, much of that is in the area of the customer interactions that are digitally focused. So, Brian, I wanted to start off with a question about digital transformation. What do we think it is?
Oh, is that an easy question or is that a difficult question? I guess it's one of those things that people raise, and digital transformation is very topical, and I think it's one of those areas that means different things to different people. So from a Kcom perspective, it's all about building digital services that are simpler, clearer, and faster to use. So if you bring that down to the next layer, and if you look at the slide I've got there, there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's quite complex. So if you look at the next layer down, it's does your business have a single view of the customer or the citizen? So you've got numerous lines of communication. You've got online, you've got telephony, you've got mobile, you've got social. How do you track that customer journey? How do you have a single view of all of those activities across all of those channels? So you can't just look at one or two of those channels. You need to look across all of those channels. So ultimately, it's about changing those business processes and harnessing all those business processes to provide a single consistent service across all of those channels.
Okay, so the telephone is just one of those channels. Does it still have a big role in this whole mix?
Yeah, I think you listen to David and you listen to kind of Hugh talking earlier on. I mean, the good old-fashioned telephone still has a major part to play, and you have to offer a variety of channels, from online, web chat, social media, and of course the phone. So getting it all joined up intelligently, so you have informed engagement and informed interaction through any channel is key. So your record of interaction is a single view of the customer. Ultimately, driving the customer experience is really where it's going to be measured. So we did some research with the Customer Contact Association, or the CCA, which kind of bears this out. So the key barriers to good customer service, irrespective of sector, was a lack of a single customer view. So 75% of respondents to this survey we did with the CCA reported that they were operating in a siloed manner. So they weren't joining up these particular channels. So that could have been issues with legacy systems, lack of ownership of the customer experience. And from a board perspective, it was really a failure to articulate the return on investment and failing to clearly define what the business outcome would be. That's where we typically see these things falling down.
So from all of us here in London, we hope that this brief session was informative, and we hope that it's going to give you some ideas about how we can help you.